Yo, what's going on guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Nevoani and today I'm gonna show you how to master your tracks properly. So I'm doing this video because I posted a poll on my community section on my YouTube channel the other day, and a lot of you have voted to make a tutorial about mastering. Mastering basically isn't that complicated and a lot of people confuse it sometimes a lot. All in all, it isn't that, complicated or something. I've learned from experience that mastering isn't gonna turn your track, into sounding perfect. You need to have a great mix from the start. That is very crucial. You can't just have a shitty mix and put a great master on the track and expect to turn the track into a whole different, sounding track. So for that, make sure you have a well-mixed track first. Then you can achieve a great master. So that's the track that I'm gonna be using. It is one that I made a couple of years ago and I didn't release. So here's a preview. As you can see, it is very well mixed in my opinion, and I think we can achieve great results with the track. Okay, I'll shut up now and teach you how to master your tracks. One important rule that a lot of people talk about is headroom, and what headroom basically is you see the space, you see the gap between the peaks. This gap between them is called headroom, and in order to achieve great masters you need headroom. In this track we have quite a lot of headroom. We're looking very good. So first thing I add on my master chain is a compressor with a limiter. I know my track isn't clipping, but I prefer to limit my track from the start and apply the mastering effects after it's being limited. The master will sound cleaner that way. So as I said, you can add a limiter, basic limiter, or a glue compressor with this function. I use the glue compressor specifically because I can tweak some a bit of compression on the master. Now when you're compressing the final mix, make sure you don't do it too much. You just need to compress it a little bit. That way you don't have a distorted or struggling mix, I would say. For that I apply a bit of compression. You can't even see the compression decibels even moving, so it's very little. After that I add a low cut on 30 Hz and a high cut on 16,000 Hz, which basically cuts the unnecessary frequencies that we as humans cannot hear. And why is this important? Because those frequencies you may not hear in your track, but they're actually taking place in your track and taking energy in your track, which means that if you keep them and limit your track using a maximizer, limiter, whatever you want, these frequencies that you don't hear will make your mix struggle a bit because they are there. They're taking place in your mix, but you can't hear them, if that makes sense. I don't know if I explained it clear, but yeah, you need to cut unnecessary frequencies in order to achieve maximum loudness when limiting. On my master chains, I don't add, some kind of dynamics or, maximus or isotope like these ones, because a lot of producers use dynamics, but if you have a great mix from the start, you don't need some kind of dynamics. Until now we have the compressor that is acting as a limiter and a bit of compression, and the equalizer that is cutting frequencies below 30 Hz and after 16,000 Hz. Okay, so after that I basically add a limiter which maximizes my sound, and that's basically it. I usually add 2 limiters. It is good to add 2 limiters, in fact, because if you add just one limiter and rely on one limiter, the master isn't gonna sound as clean. So I add 2 limiters. I use this T-Rex brick wall limiter, as you can see. Okay, that is loud enough. And finally, I add another limiter, the isotope ozone 9 limiter I use. I put it on the IRC IV modern mode and I lower the character to fast. And what that means, this mode enables your limiter to be as transparent as possible, and this fast slow knob is how your limiter reacts. What does that mean? What is a transparent limiter? A transparent limiter is a limiter that can increase your volume or your loudness of your track without ruining its dynamics and, maintaining that, that leveling you just did in your mix. There are some limiters that are less transparent, which when you use these limiters and you increase the threshold knob, they kind of ruin your mix and, add some artifacts or noise or, dynamics. They change the whole dynamics of the track. So a transparent limiter is a limiter that only raises the volume of your track as clean as possible. That's a transparent limiter. It's not that complicated. So for that I use this mode, as it's the most transparent mode, I would say.
Let's go.
You see, that is clipping too much.
Let's go.
I think around here is good. I'm gonna add a frequency analyzer.
Let's go.
You can see the frequency spectrum is kind of full, and let's check the loudness of the track.
Let's go.
Wow, that is very loud actually. I'm gonna just decrease it a bit.
Let's go.
Okay, so that is very good actually. I'm happy with how it turned out. One note though on the metric tools or metering plugins, around between -7 and -6 RMS is very good for EDM tracks. For extra aggressive EDM tracks like psytrance, dubstep, they usually go from -6.5 RMS to -5.7, around this range, And for this track, as you can see here, it's perfect around -6.5, which is very good for an regular EDM track. And the perceived loudness is, in that, as you can see, is in that green spot, kind of red-ish spot. What is perceived loudness and what is the RMS? RMS is the, I would say, average gap between the peaks and the limiter, which is headroom. It is all the headroom gaps summarized together and divided. You have an average, which is called the RMS. That's basically the RMS. Now, the perceived loudness works kind of different than the RMS. Perceived loudness is usually about the highs and mids. Perceived loudness is basically what we as humans hear and perceive. You see this graph right here? This graph describes how the human ear perceives the sounds. You see, in the lower frequencies, in the bass frequencies, it takes more decibels in order to hear the frequency as equal as the other frequencies. This graph basically shows like how much decibels it takes each frequency in order to hear them all equal. I know this looks complicated, but it really isn't. It basically explains how we humans perceive volume. So in other words, we as humans perceive mid frequencies, or around 500 to 4,000. We as humans hear those frequencies the easiest. In order to hear lower frequencies on a equal level to these mid frequencies, we need a lot of decibels. For instance, if I lower the mids and the highs, you can see the perceived loudness decreased so much, while the RMS is still high, because RMS basically describes the headroom of the track. And if I remove the highs and add the highs and the mids, you can see how the perceived loudness showed up in the meter again. And yeah, you can maybe also add some extra effects like the imager. Imager can make your mix wider, but again, if your mix is wide and well mixed in the first place, you don't need a stereo imager. I like to make the bass fully mono, and the low mids usually we widen them up, and the highs, this one is a little bit like this. This should be okay. You see, we have a very wide mix. And it's important on this correlation meter that this dot doesn't go below 0. If it goes below 0, that means that your mix is too wide and it won't sound good on mono systems. Check this out.
Let's go.
You see, it's very good. If we listen to it in mono,
Let's go.
we have a very good mix.
Let's go.
This is the before,
Let's go.
and this is the after.
Let's go.
So that is basically it, guys, for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something new, please make sure you leave a like so other people can see the video and other people can learn something new. Please, guys, if you can, follow me on Instagram. I will link my Instagram down in the description because I post a lot of content there that I don't post here. And plus, I post and interact and engage with you guys a lot there. You can hit me up on Instagram, ask me what you want. Thank you guys for watching again. Make sure to leave a comment suggesting what video should I do next. And until next time, see you guys.